Poor timing. You can see the disappointment on his face. Allowed appeal, but turned down by the umpire.